Yes, warm welcome to everybody to our event today in the afternoon, which will be all about soil. So if you're not interested to soil, you are in the face for a wrong event. But if you're interested in soil, we are happy to discuss with you in the next 19 minutes about the importance of soil health. You will learn about the coalition on soil health, which was developed during the UN Food System Summit. You will learn from private sector, from science about soil, and I'm very happy to introduce our first speaker today. It's João Campari. He is the global leader of the WWF International Food Program. He was also chairing at the UN Food System Summit, Action Track 3, on nature positive production, and within Action Track 3, one of the coalitions which have been developed is the Soil Hub, where you will learn a little bit more later in the day. So over to you. This is a hybrid session, so we have speakers here in person and we have people online. My name is Martina Fleckenstein. I'm the Global Policy Manager of WWF International of our Global Food Program. I'm very happy to have João here to give us a kind of welcome and setting the scene for this event today. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Martina. Hello, everyone. Delighted to be here. And Martina, as you said, this is the right session for everyone, for the interested ones that want to discuss soils, and for those who are not passionate about soil health. They will become, hopefully, by the end of this session. So this is the right session for everyone. So, we are here today to talk about one of the most important topics for nature, climate, food, and health. But also one of the topics that is often overlooked, taken for granted, and mentioned on policy agendas. We are here to talk about soil health and what it means for sustainable development agenda, including its roles in limiting climate change. The first thing that I'd like to remind everyone is that when we think about soil, we immediately think of a factor of production whose primary job is to produce food, fuel, and fiber. And when we talk about soil management, we treat this management as if the soil's only function is to maximize yields to produce food. But soil is not only a factor of production. It's a living ecosystem that supports life on Earth, including ours. So we need to stop taking soil for granted. It's the first thing, and embrace it, both as a living system and as a life support system for everyone. But it doesn't stop there. Soil is also our most valuable environmental asset, and we need to start treating it as such. They store around 80% of carbon in terrestrial ecosystems. That is about 2 to 3 times more carbon than is in the atmosphere. Soil provides a habitat to countless organisms. In fact, about a quarter of all life on Earth can be found beneath our feet, all of which play a vital role in soil health, and all of which are severely impacted by climate change, thus limiting the ability of soils to produce food for a growing population. Just a single hectare of healthy soil has the potential to store and filter enough water for 1,000 people. And of course, healthy soil is a rich source of nitrogen, phosphorus, and freshwater retention, all key elements for food production. In fact, over 95% of our food production depends on healthy soils. Soils is also one of our largest ecosystems on the planet, second only to oceans in size. However, 52% of all farmland today is degraded, underperforming, or unproductive. With business as usual scenarios, soil degradation over the next 25 years could potentially reduce food productivity by 12% and drive up food prices by 30%. Less healthy soil doesn't just reduce yields, it is also forecast to reduce the nutrition density of certain crops. So in the end, if we don't treat soil as an ecosystem and as an environmental asset, we could have less food and of lower quality. While some of the soil degradation has natural causes, a very large part of it has been driven by mismanagement, such as the overuse of chemicals, over-tillage, and a lack of crop rotation. We urgently need to start valuing and investing in soil health and do justice to the valuable environmental asset it is. This requires the adoption of nature-positive production practices at scale to ensure we have healthy soils that can help us meet nature, climate, and socioeconomic development goals simultaneously. It is essential that we adopt a holistic approach of protecting the healthy soils we have, that we sustainably manage those soils where we produce food today, and to restore soils that have been degraded or are underperforming. We must move away from a model of extracting from nature to produce food and into a model of farming with nature. From short-term thinking about maximizing yields to planning in an integrated fashion and accounting for the many environmental and social benefits that healthy soils provide. Regenerative agriculture is key to ensuring soil health and long-term food security, while protecting nature, sustaining thriving economies, and improving livelihoods, especially of the world's poorest populations. Farmers need to be incentivized to adopt practices which support soil health. Agri-food supports and subsidies need to be repurposed to reward farmers for producing food that is healthy for people and planet, and support those who need extra help to transition to nature-positive production without compromising the human right to safe, healthy, and nutritious food. There also needs to be a global movement from multilateral organizations alongside businesses and financial sectors to finance farmers to invest heavily in soil health. Healthy agricultural soils would reduce the pressure to open new areas and would help deliver the 1.5-degree target. Soils are therefore fundamental for food security, for limiting climate change, and for preserving biodiversity. Treated poorly, the consequences would be very dire. We must rapidly decarbonize all sectors of our economy to achieve the targets set in the Paris Agreement. Many countries have made important commitments to reduce deforestation, and again, this is very, very important. But as well as addressing the essential role that trees play above the ground, action must ensure the health of our soils at the ground level and below. Without doing so, we will not be able to limit global warming to a maximum of 1.5 degrees. In the past few years, there has been already a push to ensure food production is considered in the NDCs. Now we must ensure soil health is included explicitly into NDCs, alongside overlooked elements like transition to healthy and sustainable diets, as well as reducing food loss and food waste from farm to fork. To create nature-positive food systems with net zero emissions, while ensuring everyone on the planet has enough healthy and nutritious food, we must take a food systems approach, integrate all the elements from the ground up, since they are all interconnected. Thank you again for joining the sessions. I really look forward to hearing the conclusions of the discussions that are forthcoming, and to seeing soil integrated into full food systems approaches that help us anchor our global climate goals. Thank you so much for having me here, and I wish everyone a wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you, João, and thank you for this very important and inspiring setting the scene and pointing out the importance of soil health, and especially the importance of integrating soil in the overall discussion on climate change approaches, especially the nationally determined contribution, and also to mention, and we had a session today in the morning, in the Coronivia process, where soil is one of the focal area Coronivia is dealing with. I'm very proud and happy that our next speaker, Dr. Ratan Lal, is in our online session now. Dr. Ratan Lal, he is the World Food Prize winner from 2020, and especially he has put a lot of energy and support in the development also of the soil coalition and within the UN Food System Summit. And we will hear from him more about the importance of soil and soil health for nature, for climate, and for people. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. It's a great honor and privilege to be here. And it's good to hear Joe talk about very good points about soil. Soil has been recognized as essential to human well-being by all cultures. For example, in Judaism, the word homo means man is derived from the Latin word humus, or the decomposed organic matter in soil, which is a sense of all terrestrial life. The Hebrew phrase tikkun olam means restoring the land, healing the land. In Hinduism, there is a Upanishad, and Upanishad lists 5 elements essential to human body: soil, water, energy, space, and air. In Sikhism, it lists that Paun, Guru, Pani, Pita, Mata, Dharta, Mahat. Guru is wind, Father is water, and the greatest of them is the Mother Earth. In Buddhism, the statement in Patvavitu, number 2, states that one should not break even the branch of a tree that has given shelter to humanity, and soil supports the tree. In Christianity, the word Adam, man, is derived from the Hebrew word Adama, meaning earth or the soil. In Greek, the daughter of the earth goddess Gaia, named Themis, or the goddess of law, and her descendant Demeter was the goddess of agriculture and soil fertility. In Roman culture, the earth goddess Tellus was related to the goddess of fertility, and the harvest goddess Ceres, named Mater Terra. In Islam, some of the best things are related to soil. Allah created the man of clay, like the potters. We made from water every living thing, and water comes from soil. Do not overuse water, even if you are living on a river. Khalil Gibran, a Lebanese philosopher, trees are poems the earth writes upon the sky. We fell them down and then turned them into paper so that we may record our emptiness. Because of this cultural strength giving emphasis on soil, no doubt that the Agenda 21 of the United Nations, the Millennium Development Goal, the Sustainable Development Goal, and the Earth Food System Summit, they all had a very strong dependence, whether we recognize it or not, on soil. In fact, the Sustainable Development Goal number 1, end poverty, goal number 2, end hunger, goal number 3, good health and well-being, goal number 6, clean water and sanitation, goal number 7, clean energy, goal number 13, climate change mitigation, and goal number 50, life on land, land degradation, neutrality, all depend essentially on soil. I must say that in 2019 December, the global food insecurity prevalence was 690 million. Unfortunately, by 2020, it increased to 820 million. And if the things stay as business as usual, by 2030, when we should have zero hunger, the number may reach to 830 million. Therefore, it's very important that for food and nutritional security, the health of soil is restored, managed, protected, and maintained. Now, coming to climate change. Before the agriculture began, the carbon stock in the atmosphere was 360 gigaton. By the time of Industrial Revolution, circa 1750, the carbon stock in the atmosphere has reached to 560 gigaton. That means 200 gigaton increase in atmospheric carbon stock came primarily from agriculture, from 10,000 years ago till about 1750. At present, the carbon stock in the atmosphere is 880 gigaton, increasing at the rate of 5.4 gigaton per year because both of fossil fuel combustion, deforestation, biomass burning, and agricultural practices. Therefore, it is very important that nature positive agriculture is adopted to restore soil carbon stock. Joe mentioned carbon stock in soil was 3 to 4 times that in the atmosphere, and I would like to give you some more exact statistics. If you take to 30 centimeter depth, carbon stock organic in soils of the world is 700 gigaton. Inorganic is 230 gigaton. Total is about 940 gigaton. To 1 meter depth, organic carbon stock is 1500 gigaton. Inorganic carbon stock is 720 gigaton. The exact total is 2230 gigaton. To 2 meter depth, organic carbon stock in soils of the world is 3300 gigaton. And the inorganic carbon stock is 1700 gigaton. Total is 5000 gigaton. Total carbon stock to 3 meter depth in soils of the world is more than 6000 gigaton. Compare that with atmosphere 880, 8 times more. Compare that with vegetation, again 620 and 6000, 10 times more. Therefore, even a small change in carbon stock in the soil can overwhelm the atmosphere because atmosphere has a much smaller amount. And therefore, it is very important that the soils are restored and managed and its layer of carbon stock is protected and restored. That brings me to the point of soil health. Simply because the word health is associated with soil, that means it's a living entity. Only living entity have a health. Inorganic, inert material, rocks do not have a health because they're not living. Therefore, soil is a living thing and its life supporting processes depends on soil organic matter. Soil organic matter content is the heart of soil health. Joe also mentioned nature positive practices. And I like to list some specific example of nature. The focus is on protecting, managing, and restoring soil health. Number 2, strengthening biodiversity. Number 3, improving water quality and renewability. Number 4, adopting negative emission farming. Negative emission. I emphasize, because many times people say neutral agriculture. No, it's a negative agriculture, negative emission. Reducing input of chemical, using biostimulants and organic amendments, promoting biocircular economy, supporting the One Health concept, and using precision agriculture. These are some of the examples of nature positive agriculture. And the way we can adopt this is through many practices. For example, some of the practices which include long-term, even objective of cash, the Coalition for Action on Soil Health, which you will be hearing more from Leanne. But I like to mention 10 points which cash could really bring about to improve soil health and still put global sustainable act on the track, sustainable development goal on the track. Number 1, what cash can do? Enhancing cooperation among multiple stakeholders. That's one of the very important actions that we can do. We already have a very good track record with private sector along that part. Other stakeholders, farmers, land managers, policymakers, enhancing cooperation among them. Number 2, promoting on-the-ground adoption of best management practices. This is much needed, and this is where we need organizations such as EICA and FAO another development institution to promote on-the-ground adoption through its member organization. Number 3, developing tools for measurement, monitoring, and verification of soil health and soil health indicators. Number 4, advocating a system-based soil health agenda. System-based, not a silo-based, integrated, integration of crops with trees and livestock to restore soil health. Number 5, implementing an action plan for restoring soil health. We need to have an agenda, a definite plan, a long-term plan. Soil health cannot happen over a few months or days. It happens on a decadal scale. Therefore, we must have a long-term plan. Number 6, developing a protocol for payment to farmers for ecosystem services and payment based on transparent, just, and fair price. I repeat, transparent, fair, and just price. Undervaluing and paying farmer less is counterproductive. Undervaluing a precious resource such as soil health and soil carbon leads to tragedy of the commons. Let's not repeat that mistake. And number 7, empowering farmers, empowering, especially women farmers and small landowners and managers so that they can adopt best management practices. Number 9, strengthening human resource capital, especially the education, including education of the primary school students, even from the kindergarten, giving them education on the value of nature, showing them where our food comes from, where clean water comes from, where clean air comes from, where the biodiversity comes from, where 95% of all antibiotics come from, where as much as 95% of the food comes from. Students must know that. And therefore we should enhance respectability of the farming profession and of the soil health profession. Right now, if you compare the salaries of the graduate coming from soil and agriculture compared with graduate coming from IT or engineering or medical, you will see a difference in 2 to 3 times in the salary. Society must learn to respect the farming profession. And we must alleviate drudgery of the farming operation, especially for smallholders. Soil health and the cash have a long agenda ahead of us. It has long challenges, but we have a very good start. We can achieve these goals. And thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thanks, Dr. Lal. Thanks for this amazing and inspiring input. And I hope you hear the applause here from the room. So that was really setting the scene and also explaining already the actions we need really to improve restoration of soil, to improve soil health. And this all will only be possible if we have the support of the member states. And I'm very happy that we have a pre-recorded speech from the Minister for Agriculture from Chile, Maria Emilia Undurraga. She will talk about the engagement of Chile and the Chilean government on improvement in soil and restoration.
Good morning. I would like to greet the General Director of IICA, Mr. Manuel Otero, the Nobel Peace Prize and the World Food Prize, Dr. Ratan Lal, and all those who joined us in this event that is part of COP26. The soil is a non-renewable natural resource on a human scale, which constitutes the basis for the integral development of the country, through its ecosystem services that go beyond production and which are expressed in the rural world. They influence directly the welfare of our entire society. In this context, Chile has signed many international commitments that guide us toward a healthy world, which require healthy agriculture, which will only be achieved with healthy and living soils. Our country faces great challenges and opportunities in agriculture, in a scenario in which the impacts of climate change are increasingly relevant and the sense of urgency in climate action is increasing every day. The challenges are related to solving different needs of the society in Chile and in the world, promoting sustainable development with a responsible use of natural resources and biodiversity. The opportunities focus on mobilizing local communities and institutions for the development of the territories and improving food security both nationally and internationally. Chile, through the Ministry of Agriculture, is promoting the construction of a new paradigm to face climate change, paradigm that incorporates a new approach to generate policies, programs, and initiatives that strengthen a sustainable production and in the agriculture, livestock, and the forestry sectors. In this sense, the Ministry of Agriculture participates in the program Living Soils of the America of IICA, with the Carbon Capture Center of Ohio State University led by Dr. Lal, initiative that builds a mechanism so that the soil health is the priority to generate climate action in mitigation and adaptation in the most vulnerable human and ecological communities in the country. Generating bridges between science and public policies with the objectives of restoring the health and quality of the soil, this means restoring the health and quality of agriculture sector in Chile. The participation of the Chilean Ministry of Agriculture is focused on strengthening its management instruments, specifically the law that establishes an incentive for the agro-environmental sustainability of agriculture soils, instrument of government action that has allowed in more than 10 years to recover and maintain the productive level of the soil, helping to promote the agricultural development of the country and that advance toward a mechanism to encourage sustainable soil management. Our commitment is to continue this work because the time is now. Thank you.
So I cannot say thank you because it's in video, but we are very happy to get this input from Chile, emphasizing the Living Soils of America initiative. I think we will hear more about this also later from Manuel Otero. We stay in South America, and I'm very happy that Walter Ojantakpal, or always problems with your name, sorry, he's from Uruguay, and he will tell us also how Uruguay has managed and is working on restoration of soil.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I have been a negotiator of Coronivia for several years. Coronivia is the agenda item of the convention dedicated to specifically to agriculture, and one of the main 6 topics that it has addressed in this first phase of work has been precisely soil health, soil carbon, how to increase organic matter in soils, and the benefits related to adaptation in terms of increasing water holding capacity in soils, improving fertility, reducing the need for more fertilizers. So it's one of the key areas of work of Coronivia, and providing means of implementation for countries to increase action in relation to the improvement of the soil health. On the second question by Martina, what has Uruguay been doing? Well, we have national obligatory by law plans of use and management of soils that have to be approved for the medium term, and that establish a limit to the erosion that is admitted. And this has increased a lot the adoption of good practices of soil management to maintain or increase carbon in soils. This is in cropland and dairy farms. For grassland, we are promoting systems that manage the grassland, in particular our rangelands, with higher primary productivity, with less grazing pressure. This increases the biomass above ground, but also the biomass below ground, and this is a source for maintaining or improving the carbon in soil. So, to be very brief, this is what I may share with you.
now? Yeah, now it's working. Okay. No, and I also appreciate that you mentioned the linkage of restoration and soil with grassland and rangelands, because this is a very, very important topic also. We have to consider how we could keep the carbon in grasslands and rangelands, and how we could regenerate these degraded lands. And I know that in Uruguay you have very excellent examples on that. So thank you for your input. Having said this, getting from the ministries now to the UN entities, and the UN entity who is really dealing with restoration is the UNCCD. And I want to introduce Miriam Medel. She is the Chief External Relation on Policy and Advocacy at the UNCCD. And I also have to mention that Miriam and her team have been our focal point during the UN Food System Summit, so also deeply involved in the development of the Action Track 3, Boosting Nature Positive Production. And Miriam will tell us a little bit about the importance of soil in multilateral processes. Over to you.
Thank you, Martina, very much. And I am very happy to be here and to finally meet Martina in person and Kelly after 1 year working together for the Food System Summit. So it's really very nice to be here. I don't want to repeat what has been said, actually in a very nice way by Joao and Dr. Lau. But I guess the importance of soils is very well established. And it is an issue about climate change, but it's beyond that. It is also about biodiversity conservation. It is about food security. It is about job creation. It is about really allowing different people in different ecosystems to have decent livelihoods and to keep on thriving without altering or while trying to restore the balance with nature that we are all aiming to do. I represent the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. I'm sure everybody here knows this, but I will say it anyway. We are one of the 3 Rio Conventions, often overlooked because all the attention goes to UNFCCC and lately to CBD, to the Convention of Biological Diversity. But I actually used to be a climate negotiator for many years, and then I worked for the Climate Change Secretariat. And I gotta say, I do see a lot of wisdom in the people who created the Rio Conventions back in 1992, because they created these 3 processes that are so very much interconnected, and that somehow along the way kind of each of them took off in different directions. It is the time to bring them all together now, to work together in harmony without competing with each other, and looking for complementarities. So in UNCCD, what we do is we have our agenda is really about combating desertification, land degradation, and drought. So the land restoration and soil restoration is very much embedded in our mandate. We have several work streams, and as Martina said, we were very honored to work in the Food System Summit as the Anchor Agency for Action Track 3 Nature Positive Production. There are several instruments that can be strengthened. One is in the NDCs, and here I'm going into another process, but as I said, we're all the same. In the NDCs, we did an analysis of about 184 NDCs. Only 28 had a pledge on carbon, on organic carbon in soil. Only 28. So there's a lot of space for improvement, because it's also one of the cheapest solutions, for one of the cheapest and most immediate ways to mitigate if it's done properly. Then in our own process, we have something called the land degradation neutrality targets. These are voluntary targets, which are a little bit similar to the carbon neutrality targets, in the sense that we hope that by 2030, the amount of land that has been degraded for human activity will be equal to the amount of land that will be rehabilitated, restored, or conserved. So this is also another important entry point. My final point will be on the Coalition on Action for Soils Health, which will be explained by our very dear colleague Liane, who is unfortunately not here with us. But I gotta say, I think that the coalition we saw how it emerged and how it got so much momentum and how it started getting a lot of adepts and people interested, and then we got the business sector on board through the World Business Council, and we got farmer organizations, and we got this breadth of support to promote soil health, which in our view, and the way we have seen it, is really the way to bring topics into the multinational arena. It's no longer from the top down. It is from the bottom up. And I think everyone who collaborated and who contributed to the coalition is very much committed to make it a reality, to build up on it, to anchor very much all action anchored in science, and to make it also something very tangible, because I mean, yes, we do need to meet and we do need to negotiate and we do need to have these processes, but we also need to see the action back on the ground, I would say on a more immediate, with a more immediate turnaround than before. So I will leave it there. We're very happy to support the coalition, and we look forward to continue working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam, and thank you also on that point for all the support UNCCD gave during the overall UN Food System Summit process, and that we are here talking about soil. That's really your endeavor and your support over the last, I think, 16 months where we are working together. And also for flecking out this, we are here at the Climate COP, but we have a series of COP. We have the Biodiversity COP, and we will have the UNCCD COP in May next year. And we are on this way too. And what we need really is to align the approaches of the different conventions. And as you have mentioned, the nationally determined contribution in the UN FCCC and the land degradation neutrality targets, they are sometimes very similar, but they're dealing with different ministries. So the UN FCCC and national determined targets are mainly with the Ministry for Environment. And if you talk about LDN, land degradation neutrality, is very often in the Ministry for Agriculture. And the challenge is how to bring this together and to really analyze the synergies. And I'm very happy that I have an expert in this field, Liesl Rosanova. She will talk about soil organic carboning in nationally determined contributions and the land degradation neutrality targets. Over to you, Liesl.
Thank you very much, Martina, and it's a pleasure to also shine a light on why the UNCCD deserves more attention. So on the next slide, it was already mentioned that there's been a lot of interest in soil organic carbon in the nationally determined contributions. There was an assessment of the first round and also the second round. The numbers are a bit different, but the point is that nationally determined contributions are increasingly referring to soil organic carbon because it's such a critical aspect of not only mitigation, but also adaptation and resilience to climate change. So in the next slide, I'm not aware that this kind of analysis and detailed analysis has been done of the land degradation neutrality targets. And the reason why it's important that we consider it is that soil organic carbon in that funnel is one of the metrics, one of three metrics, along with net primary productivity and land cover change, to determine whether land degradation neutrality is occurring or not. And it's also the foundation for Sustainable Development Goal or Indicator 15.3.1. And in the nationally determined contribution process, the links with Sustainable Development Goals has become one of the indicators of transparency. So there are so many links. So in the next slide, I just want to show you an example from one country, Rwanda, who has a soil carbon related target in their updated NDC, which was submitted in 2020, May 2020. So the target is to install 165,000 hectares of terraces to prevent soil erosion, and through the prevention of soil erosion, leading to carbon sequestration in soils, amongst others. Now, if we look at Rwanda's land degradation neutrality target, which was set in 2018, this target in the NDC is actually covered in two different land degradation neutrality targets. One is to maintain or improve land productivity and soil carbon without saying by how much. And the second one is to increase land protection, land protected against soil erosion. It doesn't mention terraces, but it does mention Rwanda's strategic plan for transformation of agriculture. And in that plan, the measure to protect soil against erosion is terraces. So when we start looking at the details, we find a lot of links and intricacies at the different policy levels and also the sectoral policies that support these national targets to global goals. I didn't put it in the slide, but the NDC of Rwanda also includes erosion as an adaptation measure. So the next slide, next point, and once more, the considerations that we need to think of then is partly what Martina has mentioned in terms of where the focal points are, the different ministries, and maybe even different departments within a ministry. So are these different institutions and individuals and entities communicating with each other? What are the institutional arrangements to set these targets and include the relevant sectors where the implementation is needed? How are the targets set and what are the methodologies used? Do these institutions have access to the same data, or is each institution developing its or producing its own data and not sharing with others? And all of these questions are important in terms of setting the targets so that a country knows where it's going and not doing double or more work. And the other thing is it's really important for coordinated action, because we are talking about action on the ground and how important that is. And the more coordinated decisions and actions and administration is at the national level, the more coordinated the administration and technical support and incentives can be for action on the ground. Thank you.
Nice to see you no, you're no longer to see. Thanks, Liesel, and thanks for giving this input. And I recommend there is a very interesting publication also from Liesel and the team exactly about this topic. And it's something really we have to work also. If we next year in June we will have Stockholm plus 50, and this is also 30 years of the Rio Conventions. And it's really time to reconsider how these conventions could come better together, and especially on the soil, a stronger linkage of the NDCs and the LDN is more than urgent. Having said this, we have heard a lot about already the Soil Coalition, which was developed during the UN Food Systems Summit. And I'm very happy to have, at least in this session, all the three co-leads, Dr. Ratan Lal, Livi Nowicki, and Kelly Witkowski. And Kelly will now present the content of the Soil Coalition. It's a coalition of actions for soil health. And we also have a small video which we had produced for the UN Food Systems Summit, which gives you really an impression about what this coalition is about and the step forward. So over to you, Kelly.
Thanks, Martina. Do we want to show the video first?
Yeah,
you can do the video first. Video.
Okay, we start with the video, and then we will get more explanation on the Soil Coalition.
I thank the organizers for the invitation. It's greatly appreciated. The title of my presentation is...
So it's video number 2.
Yeah.
Okay, then Kelly, maybe you
Yes.
start with a presentation and we will clarify the video after that.
Sure. So as we've heard, soils are pretty amazing, and we have this massive challenge before us, but it's also a really significant opportunity. We know from the IPCC 1.5 degree report that every little bit of emissions matters. What many people don't know, although there's very solid science, as Miriam mentioned, is that 80% of terrestrial carbon stocks are in soils. And if we look at, especially in the UNFCCC process, we've paid a lot more attention to trees, which is important and is fundamental, but we also need to start paying a lot more attention to soils. So there's over a quarter of soils at the global level, or of land that's degraded, of Earth's surface. That's 25% of land and soils that can contribute to greater climate action and ambition, both from an adaptation, a resilience, and a mitigation perspective. And we really need this all-hands-on-deck approach. We know that there's lots of work going on soils, but very often not as articulated as it needs to be. We already heard about, the fact that soils can contribute to climate goals, to water security, to biodiversity goals. 25% of the world's biodiversity is in soil. So there's so many things we can do at the same time with this really cost-effective investment that Miriam was talking about. We need to work together to start to scale these more locally appropriate land and soil restoration actions. And this is what the Coalition of Action on Soil Health really aims to do. It is a multi-stakeholder platform, and what we're trying to do is identify these gaps that are really impeding action. How do we bring the actors that are developing, there's really state-of-the-art monitoring systems for soil carbon that are feasible now? How do we bring that together with the people that are making the policies, with the investment from the private sector, and most importantly, how do we make sure that it really works for the farmers? Because at the end of the day, we can have the best technologies, and if the land managers are not aware or don't have the incentives and capacity to implement, then we're not going to get the action we need on the ground. We talked this morning about how complex the negotiations are and how very valuable they are for moving these global processes forward. However, implementation on the ground is much more complex, with many more actors and interests and across different temporal and spatial scales. And so with the Global Coalition, we really want to start to connect those dots and identify the synergies from these different initiatives. So we have really fantastic support from the private sector, many large companies. There's a soil investment hub that the World Business Council on Sustainable Development is developing, and that's going to help us really with this enabling environment piece. And together, bringing in the public sector to really how we can use private investment together with public policy to really create a better enabling environment for soil health. We need to work with the farmers, again, on the ground, and this is in terms of co-innovation with them. What are their barriers? What do they need? And then start to develop capacity, and then implement these actions on the ground. And of course, the monitoring frameworks across, again, multiple scales. How do we pull that together to make sure we have a really robust and transparent advances towards action? And so the coalition brings together research organizations. We have other coalitions like 4 por Mil that are already working on soil health, but that fully recognize that we still need to do more. And really that's where we're trying to step in. We're working, we have on the slide, but we have over almost 100 organizations, many producers organizations, many member states with much more interest coming. We have academia, the private sector, so really trying to bring people together and then encourage some of this dialogue. For those that want to invest in soil health, and there's a lot of companies now looking to invest in soil health and soil carbon, what sort of investment frameworks or guidelines can we give to them to make sure that their investment is going to matter? And so we're really excited about this. We have a short concept, and again, the video we can share with all of you, and we just invite you to join us. We're building this together as we move forward, and again, looking for synergies rather than duplication. And thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, and I think we have solved the problem. Yeah. Now we will see the video.
over 1/3 of the Earth's surface is degraded. Topsoils are lost by accelerated erosion. Soil carbon stocks are depleted by extractive farming, leading to loss of agricultural production and use efficiency of inputs. Degraded agricultural soils negatively impact around 3.2 billion people. Time to act is now.
Mathina la tukoma nayo namo ithi aibu ihinda ila twikumbania muthanga witu na wagu kindu cha mbere la twikumbania ni twithiwa tuthenda andu maututhukumana no thithia twina hinya wa kumaiga ni twithiwa methiaga makitia mbeca mbigiri kila kingi ni twikwenda masomo mbeange ni kwithiwa matuku akwini mela twaile kutumia no tithia twina umanyi wianite.
The objective of the Coalition of Action on Soil Health is to catalyze multi-stakeholder action from farmers to technicians, from researchers to CEOs, to support the investment and policy change needed to facilitate the adoption and scaling of practices that improve soil health.
The dialogues and actions being taken in the run-up to the UN Food Systems Summit are shining spotlight on the importance of healthy soils.
Our coalition of companies is committed to science-based actions to accelerate positive incentives and investments for soil health. We strongly support a coalition of action for soil health and are committed to working collectively with all stakeholders to accelerate uptake.
It is quite unfortunate that soil health is not given the level of attention that it should. When soil health has proven to be so important in terms of the level of productivity, ensuring that there are better production of crops, and also to ensure that we improve the livelihoods of our farmers. Antigua and Barbuda, therefore, will support any action related to highlighting soil health and the importance thereof.
Solo, água e sol são três grandes ativos para se fazer uma grande agricultura no Brasil e em qualquer lugar do mundo. O governo brasileiro, o Ministério da Agricultura, já tem um grande programa de solos chamado Pronasolos e agora em setembro, início de outubro, lançaremos o Águas do Agro, que é um programa de conservação de microbacias e que vai cuidar do nosso solo e da nossa água.
We look forward to working with you to build the Coalition of Action for Soil Health to transform our food systems for people and nature.
Yeah, so that's the video. You heard about the Soil Coalition. Just to emphasize, I think the strength is really bringing together all these different initiatives. And that's exactly what was one of the outcomes of the UN Food Systems Summit, and that's where we all will work together. It's the UN entities, the member states, it's civil society like WWF and others, it's the farmers, it's the producers, and especially also it's the private sector. And I'm very happy to have Diane Holdorf here from WBCSD. She is the Vice Director of WBCSD, and WBCSD was also very much involved in the overall development of the Soil Hub. And we will learn a little bit more about the engagement and the support from the private sector. And you will tell us about the Soil Investment Hub, because without financing and without financial support, nothing will happen. And over to you, and thanks for being here.
Martina, thank you so much. Hello, everybody. It's great to see you all. It's really wonderful to be here. This is a really remarkable session for 3 reasons. First of all, let's make note, it's the Finance Day. I don't think there's ever been a COP where we've had a session on soil on the Finance Day until now. That's amazing. The second thing is that this discussion on soil today has threaded together the urgency for action on the climate emergency, nature loss, and rapidly rising inequity. This is something Zhao spoke to at the very beginning in the scene setting. And it actually threads together, as Mariam said, all three of the UN conventions. So again, kind of this remarkable coming together of all these issues. And then the third reason this session is so amazing is because of the privilege of having a combined history, philosophy, and science lecture just for us from Dr. Lal. And that is not something that many of us ever have the opportunity to benefit from. So another really kind of remarkable opportunity. But I am really pleased to be able to build on all of the great comments that were shared today. We've had some really remarkable interventions on the role of government, the key integration of ministries, why we have to integrate these frameworks for action at the government and the jurisdictional level. We've had really amazing input on the science of soils and what healthy soils can really drive when we're addressing degradation, when we're sequestering the carbon in them, and what that enables. We've really brought farmers into the center of this conversation. And given it's the third day of the COP, we've already seen some pretty amazing commitments coming out of the first 2 days, the Global Leaders Summit. And a lot of it actually focused on the role of land use. A lot of commitments came forward yesterday on the role of land use, but they did focus particularly on forests and halting deforestation. There's no question that we have to do that. That goes without saying. But despite this amazing session today being held on Finance Day, we still don't have enough conversation, like has been said, about the role that soils and healthy soils play in addressing the climate emergency. And that is something that we have got to take action on. This concept of action on soils as a solution has really been a theme for this entire year. And Zhao, Martina, Kelly, you've all spoken about the role that it's played in the UN Food Systems Summit, which threaded action on agriculture forward into part one of CBD and now into the climate COP. And this consistency of messaging is really critical to drive action on why we've got to address healthy soils. And I'm really pleased to be here representing so many leading businesses in the private sector, both members of WBCSD and well beyond, who really recognize the critical importance of healthy soils to their value chains, to their employees and all of the employees across those value chains, frankly, to the overall risk stability of their operations and organizations, as well as to the tremendous opportunity that it creates. Soils really do bring all of these things together for us, and they create a really compelling business case as a result. So it's funny because in 2018, we actually created this publication in partnership with many here called The Business Case for Investing in Soil Health, 2018. For 2 years running, it was the highest hit rate on our website at WBCSD. And we just always sort of shook our head and wondered about what's driving this interest and why is this so compelling? And here we are now, really seeing why this comes through as we've unlocked this into action. And again, it's really telling that what we're talking about here is action, because this is the COP for action. This is when we need to be putting these things through into implementation. And this is what the food hub is that you've spoken to, Lee, as well as this really important supporting element, the soil investment hub. We were really pleased as WBCSD to be able to help lead the multi-stakeholder engagement around what it means to mobilize finance to and through healthy soil investments. It was actually something initiated by our members, primarily banks, but also big food and agriculture companies coming together and saying, we've all got a role to play in this. We're taking action already in our value chains. We're making commitments that link this to a net zero nature positive performance for our business. But until we put these big components together that will allow the finance to flow through the system directly to farmers to address soil practices, it's going to be very difficult for us to actually deliver that. So we put this soil investment hub together, as I said, in partnership with many here, as well as beyond, who's here in the room and online. And it has three big focus areas. The first is this concept of a restoration roadshow. There's still a real lack of understanding, Miriam, as you said, about what we've got to do to address degradation at the institutional level, at the C-suite business leadership level, all the way through to the farm, and what role we all have to play in that, and what we need to do to actually drive that transformation. So there's the awareness building, call to action part of it. The second then is technical guidance. What does it mean to actually be able to have investable grade practices, projects, programs on the ground that are going to provide these high-value, long-term solutions for healthy soils in supply chains, in value chains, and in jurisdictions. This landscape use approach where we bring multiple value chains together for investment. And then the third is maintaining this multi-stakeholder approach, because we've got to be able to do this together. So keeping these individual thought leaders, these different partners across the sector engaged in soil health, and keeping the scientists involved, practitioners, policymakers, civil society, academia, and government, so that we can really navigate what is a quite complex system still. A lot of the science still needs to be landed. The investment needs to follow that. So we really have started already to look into where can we accelerate investments, where can we drive the commitments to action. We've got 16 member companies already are driving this through their value chains. And we see that we can get to over 56 million farmers being supported through over 5 billion invested into healthy soil projects that will actually create transformation at 134 million hectares of land under management. These are really big numbers. They're not enough, but they are the starting point. So we're really thrilled that it was actually the catalyst of this Food Systems Summit, bringing all these stakeholders together in a very new way to create thinking that led us to this mechanism of the Soil Investment Hub that will drive these catalytic aspects for action into practice through these value chains, and the ability for us to do it together. I think that's really the key piece for us. So really thrilled to be able to continue that commitment, demonstrate that action, and continue to carry it forward into what will also be some of the equally big moments next year, where we will continue to show the progress against the numbers I've shared here. So thanks so much. And Martina, back over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Diane. And it's amazing. And like you mentioned, there was a push from the UN Food Systems Summit, but at the end, the engagement was coming from the private sector. I think that's very important, and I think that's exactly what we have to keep. We have to keep this momentum. We have not to lose this momentum. As I always say, the doors are open now, and we have to go in the doors, and we have to establish the room, or however it's in English. So that's a little bit the way forward we need to go, and we need the engagement of private sector, of institutes, of everybody. And one initiative, and this leads me to our next speaker, Manuel Otero, the Director General of ICA. ICA has initiated the Living Soils Initiative in America, and the Minister for Chile already mentioned this, and we will hear a little bit more about this initiative, because that's exactly, all these initiatives are the bits and pieces which we need to bring together to strengthen the topic on restoration and improvement of soil health. So over to you, Manuel, and listening in about your approaches from Latin America.
Thank you, Martina, for such an introduction, and good morning or afternoon to everyone from Costa Rica, where ICA headquarters is located. It is a pleasure to join this distinguished group at this COP26 to highlight the actions we must take to better to capitalize on the ability of health soils to help us to fight climate change. The earlier speakers have already pointed out that more than a quarter of Earth's surface is degraded, impacted, or about 40% of the population. In the Americas region, the proportion of land with different stages of soil degradation is up also to 40%, and this impact is felt not only from perspective of food production, but also economic growth, food security, rural well-being, and water risks, climate resilience, and climate change mitigation. We know that we cannot achieve sustainable development goals in the region without improving soil health. So as the Director General of IICA, the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, I want to express our commitment to supporting the Coalition of Action for Soil Health, a multi-stakeholder platform that emerged organically during the UN Food Systems Summit in recognition of the fact that restoring our productive soils can contribute to so many of the region's objectives and to the well-being of people living in rural and also in urban areas. IICA is a regional organization with 34 member states with the responsibility to provide technical cooperation in support of agriculture, development, and rural prosperity in the Americas, enhancing the competitiveness, inclusiveness, and sustainability of the sector and our agri-food systems, which we know that we cannot do without an emphasis on soil health. In light of this, together with the Carbon Management and Sequestration Center of the Ohio State University, led by Professor Ratan Lal, launched the initiative Living Soils of the Americas last year. It is also an hemispheric multi-stakeholder initiative to improve soil health across the Americas, to help enhance productivity and sustainability, increase the ecosystem services provided, including nutrition cycling and healthy and nutritious food, and of course, help adapt production systems to climate change while enhancing soil carbon sequestration. It is focused on measuring and monitoring soil health, facilitating and enabling environment with focus on policy and investment, and farmer engagement. In this way, we are building bridges with different actors, taking action to benefit soils. We are undertaking a series of actions to fine-tune, apply and adapt science-based methodologies and technologies, embracing the One Health approach. We are engaging with the public sector, for example, Ministry of Agriculture. In Chile, as Minister Maria Emilia Undurraga has already said, Mexico, Grenada, Colombia, and Uruguay, for instance, are also working with the private sector, including farmer organizations and companies like Bayer, Syngenta, and PepsiCo. We, of course, invite all other interested entities from the public and private sector, NGOs, and other international organizations to join us in this vitally important mission. Since we began this initiative, we have focused on raising awareness about the importance of soil health through several high-level meetings, events, and technical documents to discuss the role of soils in the required transformation in our agri-food systems. We are now moving forward with several actions on the ground in selected countries. Our region has fantastic examples of resilient and productive agri-systems working to restore and maintain soil health, as well as several important examples of policies that protect soil health. We are encouraged by the establishment of the worldwide Coalition of Action for Soil Health and look forward to working hand in hand to accelerate action and transform the story of soils in the Americas. Please count on our knowledge, commitment, network, experience, and operational structure to put knowledge to action and recover soils. This unique asset we grow our food and our lives. Together, I know we can capitalize on the potential of soils to contribute to the climate solution. Thank you very much, and over to you, Martina.
Thank you, Manuel, and thanks again for all your support on for the coalition and also on improving soil health on the ground. Our next speaker is, as I mentioned, we have 3 co-leads, and the third co-lead is Lee Winoiki. Lee Winoiki is the lead of soil and land health research at the World Agroforestry Institute, C4E-CRAF. And she will talk about advancement in soil health and monitoring. And without the support of Lee and Kelly, we won't be with, with our coalition where we are today. Over to Lee now.
Thank you so much, Martina. And I am so excited to talk about translating science into action. And as we heard Diane talk about, that we need science-based investments. So today I'll highlight just a few advancements in our understanding of soil health, as well as advancements in monitoring soil health. Here, we know that soil is diverse, and that in order to really understand spatial patterns and how the performance of interventions influence soil health, we need an application of a systematic sampling framework. I'm highlighting one here called the Land Degradation Surveillance Framework that we've been implementing at C4E-CRAF. Just note that we really need to combine multiple indicators of land degradation, soil hydrology, soil health, such as soil organic carbon, land management, biological indicators, as highlighted by Dr. Lau. We also need to couple this with innovative methods for soil analysis, such as soil spectroscopy and statistical analysis. The next slide shows that we have been implementing this systematically across 43 countries. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see a map of all the locations of where we've been monitoring soil and land health globally. This allows us to then produce maps of various soil health indicators, such as soil erosion, soil organic carbon, at both the global level to inform these climate models, to inform investments and prioritize where action is needed, but also, as Dr. Lau said, bringing this information down to the farmers' fields to really provide the necessary information, communicating with farmers, bringing this information with farmers so that we can engage them in the monitoring and interrogation process of these data. So I just wanted to use this opportunity to really highlight that we now have the tools and approaches to monitor soil health. We now have the tools to be able to communicate these data and maps to farmers, policymakers, investments. Let's use science-based investments to de-risk investments, to prioritize where we should be investing, but also to track performance over time. By applying a systematic methodology, we can, with confidence, track performance of on-farm interventions over time to really see how we are doing, how well these investments are going. So with that, I'm so grateful to have such a diverse community here, from private sector to governments, to research, to development, to the UN conventions. So let's work together to scale global soil health and to translate science into action. So with that, Martina, I think I've saved you some time and we can move on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lee, and thank you for bringing this connection of science with policy decisions, because I think it's more than urgent, especially in the discussion we have here in Glasgow, to really show that it is possible, that it's possible to monitor soil health, that this is not a hurdle, it's not an obstacle more, to implement and to really have strong commitments from member states, but also in the upcoming Coronivia, it will be very important to consider this. This science approach, we have the knowledge, we only have to implement. I now want to hand over to our next speaker, Paul Liu, and this is also an initiative which is under the umbrella of the coalition. It's the 4 per mille, which was launched at the COP 21 in Paris. And Paul Liu is the executive secretary for 4 per mille. And Paul, you have 5 minutes. I know you have a lot of slides. That's why I mentioned this. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Martina. I will try to make it short. Yes, I would like to emphasize the fact that, as you said, the 4 per mille initiative was born in Paris about 6 years ago. And even from that time, soil started to be a little bit the main subject. But Professor Ratan Lal knows that it's already started long time ago. And all the figure that he mentioned in his presentation was at the base of the calculation that if we increase the 0.4% the quantity of carbon in the soil every year, we could theoretically offset the quantity of carbon that we are releasing in the atmosphere. And that's where the name of the initiative, 0.4% equal 4 per mille, come from. And the goal of the initiative, of course, is to increase the carbon sequestration in soil, to increase the food security, adapting agriculture to climate change, and mitigating climate change in the whole context of the Sustainable Development Goals. So from 160 partners at the beginning, we already count 660, including countries, international organizations, foundation, NGOs, farmer organizations, education and research body, universities, farmers organization, and enterprise. And so we would like to build on that, to bring that to the coalition on soil health and make it even bigger. And so you have an overview of where are all our partners and members in the world. But what we would like to propose to all of you is to just understand what's going on when we are working on the soil in agriculture. We just break the balance that exists before, and we are going down in the quantity of carbon in the soil. And if we are lucky, we reach a new equilibrium. If we are not lucky, we erode the soil and the soil disappear. And what we propose is to change the practice through a better management practice to increase the quantity of carbon in the soil, store, then sequester. Why not reach the soil saturation and maybe in the future go over this quantity, maximum quantity of the soil due to the climate, where it is, the soil, of course, the biomass availability, the nutrients, the water that are available for the farmers. And on this slide, I tried to put some of the practices that we know that could lead to that increase of carbon in the soil. I wanted to insist on the fact that we are doing so, we are pushing in the right direction, that the civil society is asking us for the agriculture, using less mineral fertilizer, using less phytosanitary products, while increasing biodiversity and soil organic carbon. Today, with the conventional agriculture, we are here on my sketch. And we need to get inspiration. That's what we said, natural positive agriculture, nature-based solution, getting inspiration in natural forestry ecosystem, which are the most complex of those ecosystems. And moving from one part to the other, it's through what we call agroecology, which is developed also. We have many definitions, and mainly in FAO provided to that term. But we would like to see it in the 4 per mille initiative as a continuum of practices of agriculture that are all belong to the agroecology, and where farmers need to get the point where they want to go and moving from the conventional agriculture. So we try to put all of that in a strategic plan, our strategic plan 2050. We propose the vision of a worldwide healthy and carbon-rich soil to combat climate change and end hunger. And we build this under very large guiding principle. And you can find that soil health is at the center of our action, that the farmers are the key actors of this. You can find also all the multi-stakeholder approach and public-private cooperation and so on. So all the idea that we put on the table today and in this very, very complete and interesting gathering. So our strategic plan is composed of 6 main goals that you have here, and all those goals are divided in 3 to 6 objectives. And you will see that all of the objectives that Dr. Lal just mentioned in his introduction are inside our strategic plan. So we encourage you really to have a look to this strategic plan. We encourage all the countries that are not and all the partners to join the initiative, of course, to be part of the Soil Health Coalition. And we will have our event next week on the 10th of November at the Royal Concert Hall in Glasgow. So I will be there, and I hope to welcome you there for this gathering that we have once a year. So we really are pleased that this question of soil health being now on the top of the agenda for most of our policymakers and all the actors, and with the private sector as well. So we would like to continue to contribute to this very large movement and make it bigger to find solutions to fight climate change and food insecurity. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Paul, and also thank you for figuring out the agriculture practices. So this moving from a conventional agriculture to a more agroecology and regenerative agriculture practice, which is very important in this overall discussion. So with our next speaker, we will a little bit close the loop of the second part. It's Barbara Barsma. She's the CEO of Rabo Carbon Bank at Rabobank, and this is once again closing the loop in bringing in the private sector again, and also she will talk about the soil in focus of the carbon market. Barbara, over to you.
Thank you so very much. And I very much echo what has been said by earlier speakers on the significant importance of soil health, because a healthier soil is the link between, on the one hand, the fight against climate change and the loss of biodiversity, and on the other hand, the fundamental change in our food system. I work at the Rabo Carbon Bank, which is part of the Rabobank. And the Rabobank is one of the largest food and agri banks in the world. And that gives us both the position as well as the responsibility to act and to make the food system more sustainable, productive, and resilient. Because the world population is growing. By 2050, there will be almost 10 billion people, and they will need more and better food. So food and agriculture will have a double challenge. By 2050, we have to cut emissions in half, and at the same time double the food production. And the only way we can do this is by completely transforming the way we produce our food and make it 4 times as ecologically efficient. And that is only possible when the soil is healthy, much healthier than today. And the transition from depleted soils, from degraded lands to healthy soil needs pricing. I'm also professor of applied economics at the University of Amsterdam, so excuse me for stressing the importance of pricing, but I think it's really, really important to making this transition work. And of course, the task lies with the government, the pricing task, a carbon tax, an environmental tax, a lower tax on labor, but most governments do nothing on that part. But that does not discharge companies or organizations or banks from looking at how they can price the emissions of greenhouse gases internally in their own business models in order to give customers suppliers and also themselves an incentive to become less carbon intensive. And what can we at Rabobank do ourselves? Well, at Rabo Carbon Bank, we've set up carbon farming projects that enable farmers to transition to sustainable agriculture. And we offer them actually 3 services. We've got this one-stop shop for carbon farming, where we facilitate the generation of carbon credits, the monitoring, the certification of the carbon credits, and we also sell those high-quality carbon credits to our corporate clients in the food and agri sector. So we have both supply and demand in our books and can bring that together, and that is really, really important when you set up such a market. Why is pricing so important? Because farmers need a reasonable reward for their efforts to transition to regenerative practices and make the soil healthier. The revenues from carbon credits, soil sequestration, are part of that reward, but that's only possible after the soil has become healthier. And on top of those carbon credit revenues, a healthier soil also results in higher crop yields with higher nutritious value, and that helps us to feed the growing world population to become more ecologically efficient. And I would like also here to thank the many partners that we work with to develop this voluntary market for natural carbon soil-based solutions. And specifically, I'd like to thank Diane Holdorf of the CSD, and also you, Martina, of the WWF, for your leadership, because it's very important that you bring together all of these people talking about this and giving attention to this very important subject. But as a bank, we can do more than pricing regenerative efforts of our farmers. We could and should use our internal pricing mechanism, and every firm out there at the COP26 has their own internal pricing mechanism. And my question to them would be, how are you going to use that internal pricing mechanism to put a price on carbon, to put a price on greenhouse gases? We, as a because I also always want to start with what I can change myself, what we as a bank can do. And actually, what is the internal pricing mechanism in a bank? That's credit risk modeling. And you know what? We did research. And based on that research, we know that agricultural customers who score higher on sustainability actually have a lower credit risk for the bank. So what we could do is also use our own pricing mechanism and give sustainable farmers, for instance, an interest rate discount or another benefit. And we do that. To this end, what we've done is we've developed the biodiversity monitor for dairy farmers. And we did that together with many others, with Friesland Campina, but also with the World Wildlife Fund, with WWF. And dairy farmers, they receive an interest rebate if they score in the top quarter of the Dutch dairy farmers. And they also have a higher milk price, and some provinces also subsidize this top performance. Anyhow, we hope that we can soon also apply this interest rebate to arable farming as well. We also have an open soil index that's being developed with the Wageningen University, and that measures soil health quality. And that enables us both to assess our credit risk and also to advise farmers on the best way to improve his or her performance. And what we do is we give front runners in the dairy farming in the Netherlands already a discount. And the farmers who do not meet the minimum standards, they already are denied credit. And I think it's very, very important that we all use our own internal pricing mechanism to make a difference for soil health. And in that way, we can combat climate change and change the food system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. And I think also for pointing out the importance of rewarding the farmers, the one who are really going in the right direction, improving soil health And it's great to, once again, also listening in on the joint cooperation we have with our WF Netherlands program and the impacts on the ground. Having said this, before I give the closing to Juan Lucas Restrepo, I want to thank all the panelists. I want to thank all the online speaker, and I think we will see them in a minute all on the Zoom. I think you all should be inspired now, and we are just at the starting point. We have, as I mentioned, we have the biodiversity, and we have the UNCCD Corp ahead of us. We just have started on this pathway. We know where we had to go, and now it's up to us to continue to use the energy we have generated and to really maybe see the one or the other at other events, and to really integrate this in the global policies and also at national level. And having said this, I wanted then to hand over to Juan Lucas. Could I ask you? Yes, we need 2 more or 3 more minutes, and then we have to leave. I give you the micro. You could go wherever.
Martina, take your seat. No problem. No, it's great to stand here this afternoon after hearing so many good things. We are in a climate COP, and we're talking about food, we're talking about agriculture, and of course, in this specific meeting, we are talking about soils. And listening to your presentations, it's very clear that we know better and more the kind of problem, the terrible problem we are facing in terms of the loss of soil and its health, in terms of what's happening with croplands, with peatlands, with the agricultural practices that are driving this into a crisis in a very bad direction. But we heard much more about solutions and the many ideas and the multi-stakeholder platforms and the communities bottom up and the private sector, the public sector, the financial organizations really understanding what the gaps are and how we need to address them. We also see, and this is using my CGIAR hat, that we don't have kind of a silver bullet to resolve everything, and we need to ensure that we maintain our, or even increase our efforts in research and innovation to make sure we keep covering the gaps and we keep identifying better impact pathways to solve this, what can be called soil crisis as well. And from our stand, from the CGIAR stand, we are also acknowledging that we need to change our agenda, which is basically what we're doing. We've seen for the past decades productivity being kind of the driver, the main thrust for research and innovation, not only CGIAR, but also of national agricultural research systems, private sector, and obsession with productivity. And now we need to understand that, of course, productivity needs to be there. We need to feed a growing population. But now we need to devise research and innovation agendas that really balance things out and take care of climate and things that were unheard of in our CGIAR system, such as an agroecology transformation initiative, for example. Who would have thought CGIAR designed an agroecology transformation initiative of $30–40 million for the coming 3 years to really identify and support from knowledge, from science, those pathways, or a CGIAR talking about nature-positive solutions and making sure how we balance our work also with the needs of biodiversity, etc. Another critical element is that we need to keep pushing for more investment. The investment not only in research and development is minimal. The research in these areas touching environment is absolutely minimal. And we need to leverage on campaigns such as the UK's on really raising the level for innovation investing on research and innovation in food systems to a much larger level. So in closing, I would like to say that, of course, achieving soil health is everybody's responsibility. It's not the farmers, it's the farmers plus all these other elements, incentives, frameworks, policies that we need to make sure are aligned to really consider and take account for all of these hidden costs. And we are, of course, very pleased to see how there is a lot of commitment. And as Martina says, this is one stop of a process that we need to, where we need to keep working to make sure we bridge these gaps and we can live in a planet where soils become part of the solution. Thanks a lot.
Yes, and my last one is just thank you. Thank you for your interest. Thank you also to all our panelists online and the one who are in the room, and thank you for all the ones who are listening on YouTube and in our Zoom platform. And let's stay in contact and continue our way forward. Thank you. If you want one of the PowerPoints, I could forward.